All right, so this is the last part of the trig final review. Okay, number 35. Which of the 6 trig functions has a period of pi? Now, first, okay, which of them have a period of pi? No. Just tell me, what functions have a period of pi? Tangent and? Cotangent. Tangent and cotangent, and look at our choices.
There it is.
There it is right there. Now, this other information right here is also important. An asymptote at pi over 2. So which one would actually have that part of their argument? Tangent, right? So what's the argument for cotangent? 0 to pi, right? And tangent is going to be from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so there we go. So my answer right there has to be D. Now, what's the range of sine x? So now, think about range is the y value. So that means how far up and down does it go? Now, the first thing I need to do is look at, what's the amplitude of this?
1.
So what does that mean? It goes down to, and it goes up to? So my answer is? And if you get completely lost, guess what? It's right here on the reference sheet. The range of this. Make sense? Okay. So don't forget, range is the y values, domain is the x values. All right, for minimum value. So for this one right here, I'm going to do a little sketch. So if I sketch this one right here, so I'm going to start off with, this one has a vertical shift, right? So the vertical shift is up 2. So I'm going to go up 2 and I'm going to draw a little dotted line right there because that means that my function is going to be wrapping around that, isn't it? Okay, so now, what's the amplitude now? -3, right? So the amplitude is -3, so that means it's going to go up 3, and it's also going to go down from this line right here, right? So now if it's going up 3, it would go up to, so I'm going to number this. That's 2, so it's going to go up 3, would be, okay, 1, 2, 3, so that's going to be at 5, right? It's going to go up to there, and then how far is it going to go down?
2.
It's going to go down 3 more, right? Go down. So it goes negative. Let's count from right here. 1, 2, 3. So -1. So at -1, it's also going to go. So now, if it's sine, it would start here, right? So now, because it's a negative, it's going to start here, and it's going to go down like this. Something like that. So the minimum value would mean how low does it go? So how low does this one go? To -1. If it said maximum, it would be how high, right? It would be at 5, right? So for this one right here, it's going to be down to -1. All right, let's take a look. So for this one right here, it says, let's see, what's it say? Okay, which of the following equation of secant function has a period of pi over 6 and a vertical translation up 2 units? Now, let's start with the vertical translation. So which ones have a vertical translation of up 2?
B, C, and D.
B, C, and D. So I can get rid of?
A.
Let's get rid of A. So I can get rid of that one. Now, what's the normal period for secant? 2 pi. So if it's going to be 2 pi, right? But it's 6 pi here. So what happened to my 2 pi? Okay, so I had to multiply by what?
3.
So I had to multiply by 3, right? So over here on this side, I also had to multiply by 3.
So that'd be x over 3.
X over 3, right? Because I had to cancel out that 3 there, right?
Yep.
So since we wrote it out like this, I could see, oh, hey, that's how I ended up with my 6 pi here, right? So my answer has to be B. Okay, the answer has to be B because this one right here, we tried to figure out how we got to the 6 pi, and then it worked it backwards to figure out what I started off with here. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, let's start this one right here. So we're going to have amplitude, period, vertical translation, and phase shift. So first, what does this -3 represent?
No, vertical shift.
Vertical shift. The vertical shift. So now, which one has a vertical shift of negative 3?
A and B and D.
A and D, right? Okay, so let's get rid of B and C. Now, what's the amplitude here?
1.
Okay, let's take a look. Amplitude is not one of my things, right?
Yeah, no.
Okay, all right, so now, what's the period of this?
This is 1. No, 2 pi.
Period is 2 pi. There's no change to it, right? So this period is 2 pi and this period is 2 pi, right? Now, what's the phase shift here?
0.
None. This one right here says none, but this one says pi to the left. So therefore, my answer is letter A. Okay, so we went through a lot right there. We actually go through all the things to actually see what you could pick out of there. Now for this one right here, let's start off. What does this 3 out front mean? Vertical shift. So my vertical shift is up 3. So can I get rid of any of them? I can get rid of A. Okay, and B. And C. Hey, look, right there. I was able to get rid of everything except for my answer right here. Just by doing the vertical shift. Now let's take a look. Just to verify that we have, what's the amplitude here?
3.
Okay, it says amplitude 3. That's correct. Is there any change to my period? No, there's no change. There's no number in front of this, so it's not going to change my period. So my period is
2 pi.
2 pi. Let's take a look. Period is 2 pi. And what is this?
Phase shift.
Phase shift. So my phase shift has to be what?
Pi over 4.
Oh, try again.
Negative pi over 4.
Negative pi over 4, right? So if it's negative pi over 4, that means it's to the
Left.
Thank you. So my answer has to be this one, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, all right, we're good there. Now, let's go through and eliminate right now. Okay, I'm going to just start by eliminating this. First, I'm going to start with this one right here. Now, what is this one wrapping around? Is it wrapping around the x-axis?
No.
No, it's wrapping around what? 4. It's wrapping around 4, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so I could draw a dotted line right there. So if it's wrapping around 4, that means it's supposed to have a vertical shift, right? So, does this have a vertical shift?
No. It doesn't.
No, right?
No.
It would be a plus 4, wouldn't it?
Yes.
It'd be a plus 4 off to the side. So, this one's not it. Now, let's take a look at this one down here. This one has a vertical shift also, right?
Yes.
The vertical shift is negative 4, right?
Yes.
So, since this has a vertical shift, that means it's not going to be one of my answers. Now, let's take a look. What's the amplitude here?
4.
That means it has to go up 4 and down 4. This one's going up 4 and down 4. This one goes up 4 and down 4. But now, class, where does sine start? 0. So which one is my answer?
B.
There we go. Because sine starts at 0.
Sorry.
0, right?
My bad. D.
Okay. Okay, good try, good try. All right. So now for this one right here. Okay, what's the amplitude?
6.
Okay, so what's this amplitude?
3.
So is that my answer?
No.
Okay. What about this one?
No.
This one?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe.
And maybe, right?
Yeah.
Both these have an amplitude of 6, right?
But it starts at 0.
Okay, it starts at 0, right? So now, let's take a look. Cosine starts at the amplitude, right? So cosine starts in the amplitude, so that means that this one would have to be sine, wouldn't it?
Yes.
So that one's not going to be my answer. So my answer has to be, there we go.
Wait, couldn't you just say, since cosine starts at the amplitude, you could have just eliminated A, B, and C?
Yeah, it's also one thing that you could look at. This period is 4 pi. This period is 2 pi. Isn't this right here? If I look at my function right here, isn't this x over 2? So that's changing my period, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if I do 2 pi equals x over 2, multiply by 2. So 4 pi is equal to my period. So if I look at my periods right here, this one has a period of 4 pi, where this one only had a period of 2 pi, right? So I could have used that also to try and eliminate my answers. Okay? All right, so that's it. Don't forget, like and subscribe, comment.
Yeah.